It was a chilly afternoon in downtown Grayville, a small city where everyone seemed to know everyone. The city was a blend of old and new, with modern high-rises towering over small family-owned businesses. Grayville had its charm, but there was also an undercurrent of unspoken tension. Dana Carter, a graceful woman in her early 30s, had just stepped out of a popular local cafe, her favorite spot for a midday break. After she had the cup of coffee, she headed towards her car, parked just a few steps away. Dana is the wife of the city's commissioner, Ethan Carter, but she preferred to keep a low profile, never wanting to be treated differently because of her husband's position. As Dana walked to her car, she noticed two police officers approaching her. Officers Blake and Thomas pulled up abruptly beside her, blocking her path. Their sharp eyes scanned her up and down. The tension between them was evident. "Excuse me, ma'am," Blake said. "We need to ask you a few questions." Dana, taken aback but maintaining her composure, turned to them, confused. "Is something wrong, officers?" she asked. Blake, still unsmiling, looked at Thomas, who stepped forward. "We've had reports of suspicious activity in this area." "We need to search you," Thomas said. Dana's confusion deepened. "Suspicious activity? I'm sorry, I just left the cafe." "Is there a specific reason why you want to search me?" she asked, trying to stay polite, though her unease was growing. Blake crossed his arms, his eyes narrowing. "Are you refusing a search?" Dana's instincts flared. She wasn't resisting, but this wasn't right either. "No, I'm not refusing. But do you have any reason to suspect I've done something wrong?" Without another word, Thomas stepped closer, reaching for handcuffs. "Turn around," he ordered sharply. "We need to search you." Dana was stunned. "Search me? But why?" "I've done nothing wrong." Blake's face hardened. "Turn around, ma'am. Don't make this harder than it has to be." Passers-by hurried by, avoiding eye contact, afraid to get involved. Dana reluctantly turned, knowing that resisting would only escalate the situation. She felt the cold metal of the cuff snap around her wrists as Thomas began an aggressive pat-down, pulling at her coat and searching through her handbag. A deep feeling of humiliation swept over her. She hadn't done anything wrong. Yet here she was, being treated like a criminal. All because she was a Black woman standing in the wrong place at the wrong time. As Thomas finished, Blake questioned her, "You sure you're not hiding anything, lady?" Dana's jaw clenched, but she remained calm. "I'd like to call my husband," she said firmly. Blake let out a mocking laugh. "Oh, and who's your husband?" "Go ahead, call him. Let's see who he is." With her hands free now, Dana pulled out her phone and dialed. "You'll find out soon enough." The phone rang only twice before it was answered by a deep, commanding voice. "Dana? What's wrong?" It was Ethan Carter, her husband, the commissioner of police for Grayville. "They're searching me, Ethan." "Officers Blake and Thomas," Dana said, glancing at the officers, who now seemed to be growing impatient. Their smirks had faded slightly, but they still looked confident, as though they had nothing to fear. There was a pause on the line, and then Ethan's voice returned. "Where are you?" "Olive and Maple." "I just left the cafe," Dana explained, trying to remain calm. "I haven't done anything, but they're treating me like a criminal." "I'll be there in 5 minutes," Ethan said firmly before hanging up. Dana stood tall, feeling a surge of strength from the knowledge that her husband was coming. She knew Ethan would handle this, but still, The sting of being wrongly accused and treated so poorly was fresh in her heart. Officer Blake, who had been pacing slightly, looked up as he saw a black SUV approaching fast. The car came to an abrupt halt, and the door swung open to reveal Ethan Carter, tall and imposing in his commissioner's uniform. His eyes flashed with anger as he strode towards the scene. The officers froze. They recognized him immediately. Commissioner Carter, Blake stammered, stepping forward as if to explain. Ethan's cold gaze silenced him. "Step aside," he ordered. There was no room for argument. The officers backed away quickly, suddenly unsure of themselves. Ethan turned to Dana, his eyes softening as he checked her over. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly with a gentle voice. Dana nodded, though the humiliation still burned in her chest. "I'm fine," but she glanced at the officers, who now stood rigid. Ethan's face hardened again as he turned to them. "You two," he said, "explain yourselves." Blake shifted nervously, glancing at Thomas, who remained silent. We had reports of suspicious activity in the area, sir." She matched the description. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Matched the description of what? Did she resist you? Did she threaten you in any way?" "No, sir," Thomas muttered, his voice barely audible. The street, once bustling, was now filled with silent spectators, all watching the scene unfold. Ethan took a step closer, his voice growing colder. "Then why did you feel the need to harass her? Was it because she's black? Was that your only suspicion?" Blake, with a shaking voice, responded, "Sir, we were just following protocol." "Your protocol is broken," Ethan said, his voice rising slightly. "And you're about to face the consequences." The tension in the air was thick as the officers stood frozen, knowing they had crossed the line they couldn't uncross. Ethan, without breaking his gaze from the two men, pulled out his phone and quickly dialed internal affairs. His voice was calm but filled with a sense of finality. "I want Officers Blake and Thomas under immediate investigation," he said clearly. "They're to be suspended from duty until further notice." Blake's face turned white as a sheet. "Sir, we didn't mean to," he began, but Ethan cut him off with a sharp look. "You didn't mean to what?" Ethan replied. "Didn't mean to harass my wife? Didn't mean to treat her like she was less than human? Or didn't mean to get caught?" Thomas, who had been silent this whole time, stepped forward, his voice shaky. "It was a mistake, sir. We were just doing our job." "A mistake?" Ethan replied. "A mistake that could have escalated into something far worse. And you think that's an excuse?" The street was now filled with onlookers, some whispering among themselves, others watching silently as justice played out before them. Internal Affairs officers arrived on the scene shortly after, pulling Blake and Thomas aside for questioning. Their smug attitudes had disappeared, replaced by fear and regret. Dana stood next to Ethan, watching as the officers were led away. She felt a sense of relief, but also a lingering sadness. She had been judged, not for her actions, but for her skin color. And though justice was being served, the pain of the experience would stay with her. Ethan turned to her, his expression softening. "I'm sorry you had to go through that," he said quietly. "It won't happen again." Dana gave him a small smile. "Thank you for coming. I didn't know what else to do." "You did the right thing," Ethan replied, putting a protective arm around her shoulder. "And now, those officers will face the consequences." As they walked away from the scene, the people of Grayville whispered about what had happened. It was a day they would not forget soon, a day when the wife of a commissioner had been wrongly harassed, but justice had been served swiftly and publicly. The reckoning had come, and it was a lesson to all that no one, not even the police, was above the law. Thank you for watching till the end. I hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, don't hesitate to like the video and share it with your friends too. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell for more fascinating stories. Have a nice day.